Hello, everybody, and welcome to another panel. We have lovely comics, writers, artists, and awesomeness people. We got our awesome Tony Fleecs.
Hello?
Miss Agnes Garbowska. And last but not least, the lovely Heather Nuhfer.
Hey guys.
So this panel is all about how a comic is from start to finish. And we're going to start with the obvious question. When IDW asks you and announces that there's going to be comics, where does it start? How do you guys start the comics process?
You mean before the comic even started coming out?
Before the comics even started coming out.
Well, the first I heard of it was Bobby Curnow, who edits the book, was already an editor on Ninja Turtles and Godzilla and stuff at IDW, and he contacted me because we'd just been talking about working on stuff. He contacted me about drawing just a piece to show Hasbro what the ponies would look like in a comic book. So I did that. It looks, it's the worst thing I ever drew, but it was close enough to show them, like, here's what we would do, and they were like, fair enough. So from there, that's when they started talking to writers. And how early were you talking to them? Was it before the first issue came out, right?
Oh yeah. I was at a party and had been a big fan of the show and was like, this needs to be a comic, guys. Like, this needs to be a comic. So I just started emailing everyone I knew at different publishers because I was sure somebody had the license. I was positive, and I got a really cryptic email back from Chris Ryle at IDW. He was like, we may have this property. If we do, would you be interested in pitching? And that's kind of how I got roped into it. At that time, they were talking to Katie, but we're looking for a secondary writer on the main series. So then I pitched a whole bunch, and that's kind of how I got in.
I'm the latecomer to the game. I joined in around issue 6. Yeah, I did the cover for issue 6. So I ended up joining in a little later on, and they're just looking to expand the creative team. They're looking for other creators to make sure all the books came out on time, because unfortunately one artist can't draw that many issues. And I started off as a cover artist, and then I proved myself that I could draw a pony and make it look decent, and then I started working on interiors after that. But I joined in when they're looking to expand the team to make sure the line was always out on a consistent deadline, and everything hit the deadline. So I came later.
Well, you speak of deadlines. So you joined the team. You joined IDW. And now, did you do anything prior to Pony?
Oh, yeah. I've been working in the industry for over 10 years. I started off working for a lot of small press companies. Actually, the first title I worked on is actually not kid approved. Is there any kids here?
It's like 10 o'clock.
You should be in bed. But no, I was basically working on a slightly older audience book, and then I worked on pinups for a comic company called Stormbringer, so I was drawing their pinups for their book as well. It's called The Black Bastard. That's the book I worked on. A lot of people thought I was a really tall black dude for the first 2 years of my starting off because it's just the style I drew. I was a pinup artist, so it was very different than ponies. And then I worked in self-publishing. I did sketch cards. I worked for Marvel on Spider-Ham, Girl Comics. I was a cover artist for several titles, working on Dynamite Entertainment. I've done work for Dark Horse. I'm working on Dynamite Grumpy Cat right now as well. So I've always been in comics, and I self-publish. You can see my comics at agnesgarbowska.com, which unfortunately aren't updated anymore because of ponies. But no, I've been working in the industry for over 10 years now. It's just ponies are, after Marvel and ponies were like the two big gigs, and now I'm one of the regulars on ponies, so I became one of the main artists, and now I'm just consistently working on ponies, and Gem and the Holograms. Now I'm doing Gem and the Holograms annual, so I'm working on Gem and the Holograms now in addition to ponies.
So when IDW comes to announces they want have the next in the series, how do you guys, do you pick? Do they assign, or is it just a mix of both?
At least on the writing perspective, we always we pitch our own original ideas. Occasionally we'll get like, we're gonna, like the Fiendship is Magic series, we got a list of villains and we all had to pick a villain. But that was the
Those were awesome.
that was all we really got, was that you had to pick a villain. And occasionally they'll be like, hey, we have a lot of, I was about to say Applejack, but there's never Applejack stories.
Oh.
In the comics, there aren't enough. That's all I'm saying. But they'll say, we have a lot of this character. Do you have any ideas for these characters? So it's never like we're given an idea and then we have to, come up with a script based on that idea. They're all original ideas.
Okay. Now, so you have the script, you started writing it out. Then you pitch it to IDW.
Mm-hmm.
Do they have to go over to Hasbro and say, "Can we do this, please"?
Yeah, everything gets double approved. So it gets approved through IDW and it also gets approved through Hasbro.
Yeah, IDW sort of, Bobby the editor sort of works as like a gatekeeper, where he sort of works enough with Hasbro to know, like, either we've tried this before and they said no, or we've done something similar to this, or they don't like this type of thing, or they're looking for this type of thing. So you can pitch him stories, and like when I pitch him stories, I pitch them in like groups of like 5.
Yeah.
And then he'll say, this one probably doesn't work because of this. This one sounds better. Maybe try some of this. And you sort of, for me at least, before he sends stories off to Hasbro, he'll send them back for like a sweetening. Like maybe try this. And then they go to Hasbro, and then Hasbro will say, we don't like this, this, and this, so we'll pass on it unless he wants to do this, this, and this.
Mm-hmm.
So then you send it back in again, and then they say, okay, we'll do this.
Yep.
It's sort of it's a lot of back and forth.
So you have the story set up.
Yep.
Does it become a script then, or is it rough sketched or rough ideaed?
Oh, it starts, so the very base is the pitch, which is usually, apparently 5's like the magic number, because I usually pitch 5 or 6, which are like a paragraph to a page, just sort of what's going to happen in the story and kind of prove that you can tell a story, like, and use characters appropriately. So you'll hand in apparently 5 or 6, and they'll usually, if you're lucky, they'll pick 1 or 2 and be like, these are the ones we want. And then after that, you go and you write an actual script. And that can be totally dependent on the author, which would be curious to hear what Tony says since he writes and draws. But like, I'm not huge on giving art direction in my scripts because that's not my specialty.
Yeah, I don't know. So I'm writing now. I'm about to start writing my first one-shot's a Friends Forever issue with Rainbow Dash and Little Strongheart. But actually, I'm just at the outline stage, so I'm not sure what my script's going to look like for another artist. I've only ever written stuff for myself, and so I have a feeling I'm just going to be a real pain in somebody's butt.
Oh no, you have to do it for a different artist?
Well, no, not really. I mean, but I got to write the script like I'm writing it for somebody, right? Because I'll draw it.
You should really give notes to yourself.
Yeah? It's like, you should do this like you did in Friends Forever #2.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just at the outline stage right now, so I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah. And that's when it kind of becomes like a collaboration. Sort of, I try to trust the artist as much as possible because I don't know that crap.
Yeah, the best scripts are the ones that leave you room to sort of, where they say, I'm looking for something like this, and then just trust that you know what you're doing enough to just do something like that.
Yeah.
I still sometimes change them. If I really don't think a page lays out and I think maybe a panel has to be added or taken away, I do it. And then I go to Bobby, I'm like, hey, so I did this because I thought it read better, and do you agree? Usually he's like, yeah, it works, because he does agree. Sometimes like the artist views it because we see it visually in our head too, but we might see it slightly differently, and sometimes we do make choices. Even if the script calls for maybe 5 panels, we might add the 6th because we're like, oh, really needed that, or we're like, no, we had to take that one away because it didn't make sense in the flow of the story. So even if we don't collaborate, sometimes we still take initiative and change. Well, I take initiative, and sometimes I just change it up, and writers are usually pretty cool with that because sometimes they're like, oh, I didn't think about that. Yeah, that works a lot better. And I've been lucky so far that any change I made, they were like, oh yeah, that was a better choice. So I'm like, oh, thank God.
Yeah, because I think if you're, if you just write, like I just write, sometimes it's hard to understand, how much can happen in a panel, like how many, changes of direction need to happen in a panel, and you need an artist to be able to kind of tell you that, because we just aren't that good at visual stuff.
Now, I've been to a couple of M.A. Larson's panels, and back in the day, and before being a vendor, and he said when he was pitching, he would always purposely put in ideas and jokes that he knew were going to get removed, just so that he could essentially slide in the ones that he really wanted to get in there. Has that ever used that tactic?
I've never personally used that tactic, but I tend to not want anything too ridiculous. So, but I know a lot of people who do that more or less to see whether their scripts actually get read. It'd be like, oh, well, there was like a 3-page spread on the State Puft Marshmallow Man, like taking down Ponyville. You didn't see that? So, I think a lot of people do that just to make sure people are paying attention.
So to keep it PG-13, I guess.
Yeah.
G.
G.
It's rated G.
Gee.
I don't know. I've seen
general
a
audience.
couple of Andy Price's comics, and
Well, there's a reason Andy isn't
the
here.
Chrysalis one where the whole town just seems to. Well, anyway.
Yeah, it gets a little more violent in the comics. I mean, some of the Fiendship is Magic issues we got pretty horrible in. But compared to like Disney cartoons, I feel like it's
Yeah.
still pretty much in the G, like a dark
Some
G.
crazy Disney
from time to
stuff.
time.
When you watch it, you're like, oh.
Uh-oh.
So I think the comics, they do push it, but I think no matter what, they're still PG. Like, yeah, some just get a little dark, but they're not that dark that a child can't read it and be able to enjoy it. So
Yeah.
it's like, it does get dark, but to a point. It gets cut off just at that point, so.
So it all happens off screen.
Yeah.
Off panel. Now, speaking of panel, so you got the script. Now the next step, I guess, is you hand it off to the artist, I guess, or is there a step between there?
Well, other than editing the script
Yeah.
by Bobby, he'll rein us in and make sure things more or less make sense and are the way they're supposed to be, and then it gets handed off to the artist.
Then we get the script.
Yeah. Or if you're like me and you always have like 10 extra pages, then usually those get cut back a bit.
Well, that's another question. In terms of pages, like you'll have the script, and maybe the artist wants to put in a 2-page whole.
Impossible.
Yeah,
that-
no, we've never had
never
that kind
happened.
of opportunity.
Impossible.
Nah, we pretty much stick to the script pretty close. We've been lucky that most of the writers we work with are a little looser. There's some writers are more loose than others. Some give very detailed descriptions of every single panel, so it leaves us a little less freedom. But I still, if I read the panel description, I'm like, no, something else is gonna work better. I'll still change it up, but you still stick to page count. You still stick to basic outline. If you do change anything, it's more of the minor things, like a panel here and there, but you don't go off and add pages because you can't. It's already, the script is made to be the pages that it's made, and you can't go off and start adding pages because it won't make sense. The book will be too long.
Yeah.
Also, so many of the stories are written in 1-issue or 2-issue chunks. So like it's a self-contained story in 1 issue, or it's self-contained in only 2 issues. So usually they're packed all the way full
They're
with
very packed.
plot and story, so that like there's no room to add a page or subtract a page because all the pages are used up with the information they're trying to
Yeah, if
cram in there.
anything, Pony teaches you to be really good at economy of story. Like, you have to have every panel mean something, and there's like limited reaction panels, which kind of sucks for the artist.
Yeah, and a lot of comics that go on for like 6 issues, an issue of the comic will sometimes read like a commercial break of television, like when the show starts up to the first commercial could be an issue. The ponies tend to be either like 2 commercial breaks or just like one whole issue is a whole episode, as far as like the story and how full it is.
Do you have maximum number of pages that essentially you have to keep it under this, or you have to have it over this?
They're 22.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
22 pages.
The annuals are 48 pages, which is an unholy nightmare. But yeah, they're 22 pages generally.
Yeah.
Okay, so now you have the sketches. You have the full page art that people can go, and after they've gone off to printing, you guys can, well, once it's after it's been released, people can go pick those up.
Please,
Please pick 'em
yes.
up.
by all means.
Down in the
Really
vendor
want
hall.
you to.
Which I need to do personally, because anyway. So you have those pages now. From the sketching, do you prefer the sketcher do the inking as well, or do you guys prefer to see it separated?
Everybody on Pony's pencils and inks themselves. I think me and Agnes's process is pretty similar up to a point where we both do digital layouts / pencils. The way comics usually work is you'll read the script, you'll do layouts, then you'll turn those layouts into pencils, and then either you or somebody will ink the pencils, and then it goes to a colorist, and the colorist colors them.
And what are pencils, Tony?
Pencils are where you take the layout that you've drawn, which is sort of rough and sketchy, and you tighten it all the way up so that it looks, so that the person who's going to ink it, if it's not you, can read everything that you've drawn and turn that into the ink lines, which are much easier to photograph. If this gets too technical or nerdy, feel free to yell out.
Or yell at us if we don't understand what the heck we're talking about.
But what we do is we skip the pencil stage altogether, and we do our layouts because the ponies are sort of cartoony, and we do them enough that you just sort of have to get an idea of what you're going to do down, that you send off to IDW and Hasbro, and they can approve the artwork based on that. And then we go straight from there into the inks, which is the tightened up lines that you see on the page at the end. So that's sort of the two main steps. For me, the hardest part is the layout / pencil stage, which is all about figuring out how to tell the story and trying to fit everything into the shots that the writer's asking for, which sometimes can be like, 6 panels on a page, and one of the panels says, well, we see all of Ponyville, and in the foreground, somebody
We
enters
see all the
with
future, we
yeah.
see all the
Yeah.
past.
Somebody shows up carrying a shopping bag, and in the background, Spike's holding a big diamond, and you're just like, what? Because the panel's like this big. How can I show all of that? So it's a lot of problem solving and stuff like that.
Yeah, my layout process is very similar but different. I tighten up I usually start with layouts. They're literally little circles. The head goes here, the head goes here, there's a building here. Like, if you look at my initial layouts, they make no sense to anyone except for me because they're literally circles as heads.
Do you do those on the script?
No, I do it digitally.
No.
And then what I do is I usually do that for the page, and then I go in and I tighten it, which is the pencils. They're tight enough that Bobby and Hasbro can look at them and they know what they're doing, but they're loose enough that they're not tight. Like, I ink myself, so I could be loose to a point, but I think I'm the only one who colors myself in the interior pages, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I'm the only one who colors her own work. I have an assistant, and what she does, I literally give her a file, which is my inks, and I watercolor my own pages. That's why if you look at my tones and you're like, wow, that kind of looks like watercolors, it is watercolors. So a lot of my interiors is either watercolor. I'm starting to work a little more digital now, but all my tones I'm doing myself, and then I give my flatter. What she does is I give her a file with, it's a rainbow. All the colors are a mess. Like, the ponies are blue, green, purple, everything, and I tell her, can you color correct everything? So she takes this rainbow of colors and she makes the ponies the right colors, she makes the backgrounds the right colors, and that's her job. Her job is to correct all my colors, so when I go in and I add the final digital, I add a little extra shading on top of the watercolors just to make some of the shadows pop more, make some of the lights stand out, add a little more effect, colorize some of the lines. Colorizing lines is when you take the background lines and you make them like purple, so instead of having all black outlines, something might be a green outline. But I do that all myself because I have a vision in my head, and I've worked with color. Like, I have to give our colorist a shot one day, but I've had so many bad colorists in the past that I just started coloring myself because a few of my earlier issues that came out, I just looked at them like, oh my God, what did they do to my art? And it kind of
Not
made me-
ponies.
Not
Not
ponies.
ponies.
Ponies,
Heather's awesome.
yeah, Heather's amazing. Like, if I would give a colorist a shot, Heather, I already told Heather, you're the only colorist I think I would trust enough based on what she did for other people. But, like, especially when I started getting into comics, they hired, like, colorists for, like, dirt cheap, and they're just awful. And they made my art look so bad that I became afraid of colors. So I just started coloring myself. So now I just can't let go of that. Like, I should, because it'll give me more time. But I'm really fast. Like, I could flip a book in a month that's pencil inks and colors, which is really, really rare. But I don't have a social life half the time, which I don't mind. But it's okay, because I like drawing and I love what I do, and you really have to love what you do to work on comics. But yeah, from layouts to inks to pencils and all that, and then I color myself. But usually they pass the colors along to someone else, to Heather.
Well, now that you mentioned coloring, you see classic comic books, black and white, black and white, black and white. What is this? Why do you see more coloring nowadays? Is it just is it cheaper to print it? Is it what has allowed that?
I don't know about nowadays. Like, they've been in color for like 60 years. But as far as like independent comics, tended to be more black and white, 20 years ago, and now they tend to be more in color. I think it costs about the same to
Yeah.
print it in black and white versus
not
color.
much of a difference
The only difference is
anymore.
cost is that you have to pay a colorist. But I don't know. Like, I can't imagine them putting out a My Little Pony book that wasn't in color, because it's the most colorful cartoon
But
of all time. And also, like, you couldn't tell apart,
confusing.
like a Pinkie Pie or like a Maud Pie and a Twilight Sparkle would look very similar from behind.
but then we can have like our own OCs and
I
our
suppose
OCs.
you could get in there with colored
Maybe
pencils.
coloring book, pony coloring book.
I kind of want that.
I'd buy that.
Guys,
you
let's
kidding?
do that.
Do pony coloring.
IDW, just send that
Throwing
check.
it out there.
I got bad news for you.
Okay, so you have so it's now colored. You do digital versions now. You do digital versions versus you do the penciled versions. You scan it in and then do the digital after you colored it. Do you scan it in and then do the digital app after the fact?
Well, my process is slightly different than Tony's since I watercolor. So I do all my layouts digitally, so all the pencils are done digitally. I print them out, and because I watercolor, I can't blue line, because then you would see the blue line through the watercolors. So I actually light box everything. So I have my page, and I have a light box, and then I ink. It's really scary, because when I tell people I ink directly over a light box, most people think I'm crazy, because it's really rare people do that. Then I ink my page. I add only the shadows, so like the tones, so like any dark spaces were painted. And then I add those, and then I actually scan it back into the computer, do the flats, and then I add the final colors digitally. So it's a very tight combination. It's
Wow.
very back and forth between digital and traditional all the way to the end. So it involves a lot of scanning, a lot of light boxing, and then I finally finish off on the digital side of things.
That's cool. I didn't know that. Fancy.
It's too much work. That's why I'm starting to work more digital. Hopefully I'm going to pick up more digital, because I didn't think I was strong enough to be a digital artist, because I'm so used to traditional. But on Grumpy Cat covers, I've been practicing more of the digital coloring, and I think I'm starting to become a little stronger, and it looks pretty cool. So I'm going to start playing around with that a little bit more.
Love Grumpy Cat.
It's true, it looks cool. I saw it. You'll see it.
He saw it, and he liked it.
Ooh, I'm excited for the next couple of comics. You got me all excited. But the one thing that I get really excited about are the rare covers, the variant covers.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I
Things
love
like SDCC. That if any of you had the opportunity, Mr. Fleecs had one over at.
Oh, yeah, the San Diego Comic-Con variant
Yeah.
this year was
Oh, that was awesome.
was like an EC Comics throwback cover, so it basically looks like a My Little Pony comic that came out in like 1955.
If you haven't
so-
seen it, Google it.
Yeah, it's pretty cool looking. I didn't know it was going to be the San Diego Comic-Con edition. They basically just said, like, we need one that looks like this, and so I did one that looked like that. But yeah, the variant covers is great, especially for like if you are having a slow week or something, or like you've got a little extra time in your day. That usually the editor will call and say, I need this and maybe this, and sometimes I'll get a call and they need like 3 or 4 covers, which is pretty great. And it's how a lot of us sort of started working on the book, is they can use the covers as like a a proving ground where, you know, like if you send samples and it looks cool, yeah, it doesn't really put them out too much to try you out on a cover. And then depending on how that goes, it seems like people tend to get work that way.
That was me.
That was me.
I proved myself through the covers. They were like, oh, you could draw ponies. Oh, you can draw really good ponies. All right, we'll give you more work. Yay.
Now
They said yay.
adorable. Yay. No, so when you have the variant cover, then you can have like 5 or 6, 7 variant covers in one issue, and some are more rare than other ones. I know from myself, I was trying to find one particular one from the skull, the candy skull one, the
Sugar
Sarah.
Skull?
Sarah.
the sugar
Yeah,
skull.
Sugar Skull covers for Sarah Richards.
Yeah, the Twilight one on eBay was going for 150.
Ooh, wow.
I
Why
got
are we
mine
not
for a lot cheaper, but
Sarah
yeah.
sells it for like $10. Find Sarah Richards at show, buy her Skull Candy Girl
Yeah.
covers.
The Twilight, the Twilight one, that specific, it was the incentive one.
Yeah, the retail incentive covers. They're the really rare ones. I have a few, but not those. I have a few of the ones I worked on at the show.
I was very excited. Anyway, no, and how is it the comic book shops that ask for covers? Do they say, I want a cover from this artist? Or is it the comic book, they submit stuff? Or
There's retailers like Jetpack Comics that's been doing it pretty much the whole time.
And Larry's Comics.
And Larry's Comics as well.
He's awesome.
Larry's Comics comes around all the time. Hot Topic's been doing it since the beginning. By the way, you should visit Jetpack Comics here in Comics World here downstairs at the show. They've got exclusives that are just for this show. I drew
our
them, but
covers.
you should draw them either way. Or you,
you
should
did,
buy them.
you
either
did
way.
the
I
cover
drew
for
them.
you did this
Either
cover,
way.
correct?
Yeah,
Right?
you did this cover.
But yeah, the retailer will go to IDW and say, or like Hastings does an issue every time, and they'll say, we want to do a variant because not only does it just give them something, it gives people a reason to go to like Hot Topic or Hastings or Jetpack Comics. It's like the money they spend to have the cover made, they make more money in just selling that issue than, you know, it's a
Yeah.
cost-benefit situation.
Do
But
they
yeah,
have to order like a certain amount?
Yeah.
Yeah,
There's
there's
always
this-
a quota of how much you have to.
Yeah, there's a certain number of comics they got to order, and it costs X unless they provide the artwork themselves, in which case it costs, you know,
Different
Y.
Why?
But for the most part, what they do is they just contact IDW and say, we want, I think the lowest you can get is like 1,200. We want 1,200 copies of this comic, and we'd like, you know, Tony Fleecs, or we'd like Agnes Garbowska to draw it.
Yeah, sometimes they do contact IDW saying we want a cover. I did a cover for, I think it's Books A Million, where they literally went to IDW saying we want this cover. Is there an artist you could recommend? And because my schedule, I was just about to start another issue, they're like, oh yeah, we could hire Agnes for that. So they're really happy to have me on it because I guess I was one of their top picks. But it depends. Sometimes you get hired for a cover just because you're attending a certain convention. They're like, oh, they're already attending our convention. It'll be a good promo because they're already there. But if it's like for retail incentive, for example, retail incentives are not ordered by the comic stores. Retail incentives are there because you have to order a minimum amount of comic books. And if you order that minimum, you get the retail incentive. So it's an incentive for comic stores to order more issues. But it also makes the retail incentives sometimes really rare because not all stores might have them.
Yeah.
So that's why sometimes you can't find the covers everywhere. So they're really cool because usually a store has to order a certain amount of issues before they get the retail incentives. It's usually how it works.
Yeah.
I thought that now, did they have to buy that one, or when they buy the minimum, do they get the other one?
I won't lie, I'm not 100% sure on that because it's not, I draw the books and then I kind of know that stuff. So I won't answer that because I actually have no idea.
Yeah, I think they have to
They have to
buy
pay
it.
for
They're
it.
not
I
giving
think they
away
have
free
to-
comics.
Yeah, they have to pay for it, something or another.
And that's why it's so rare.
Yeah, they're harder to find.
So now so when you push out a comic to push them, you guys are finished, or you hope you're finished. You send it to them. Do they often send it back and say no? essentially on some areas and try again? There's some areas like you have to fix this area or anything?
That's usually done during the layout or pencils, because
Yeah.
after I'm done pencils, every pencil gets sent to IDW, which gets sent to Hasbro for approval. Now, if Hasbro decides last minute to do a change, then we all want to cry, because fixing digital is a pain in the bum.
And it's always last minute.
Oh, it's always last minute. And you want to cry. And some of the changes are just stupid. But most of the time, because you send out your pencils beforehand, the changes can be made before you get even to that final stage where you have to adjust the, like, their recent book, IDW approved it, and I mean, Hasbro approved one of the panels, and they went back, we're like, we don't like Pinky's face in this panel, but we really like it the 2 panels over. I won't lie, I totally copy and pasted it right into the panel, just because it was the face they wanted, and no other face would do, and they were so happy. They're like, that's wonderful, and I'm like,
It's exactly what we wanted.
yeah. But it was such a last minute change where I literally had less than a day to make this fix. And at that point, it's crunch time. And some fixes are really hard and some fixes are easy. And copy and paste at that point was the only option, because my editor was like, I need it back like right away. And I'm like, here we go. And Hasbro was so happy. Same
Yeah.
pace.
Yeah,
It
there
was-
are there are so many filters we kind of have to go through at each stage to kind of, for most part, keep us from having that horrible panic moment at the very end.
One of my
luck-
panic
luckily
moments
they
was
put
at the
those in
airport.
place so everybody's more or less on the same page.
IDW got one of the Hasbro approvals after I submitted everything for this one variant cover, and I happened to be in travel for a convention, and my editor Bobby's like, Agnes, we need this changed ASAP, and I'm like, I'm at an airport. So I was there in the middle of eating a sandwich with I have like a portable Wacom and my tablet and my computer, so I'm there eating my sandwich trying to fix this, but then guess what, there was no good Wi-Fi in the airport, so I was a crazy lady with my luggage in one hand, laptop in the other, running around trying to send this file to my editor at this airport, literally running up and down just trying to get the Wi-Fi, because it was free Wi-Fi, but the Wi-Fi signal didn't work. So
And
it's like,
instead you sent a sandwich.
God, I didn't even finish that sandwich. Bobby was like, I'm so sorry. I'm like, that's all right. It's part of the job. And I acted like it was all cool. But I was a crazy lady running around the airport with laptop in one hand, luggage in the other, just trying to find a Wi-Fi signal. Turkey.
No. It's good detail.
Turkey.
It's all about the details, though. And you guys are. That's personally, that's one of the things I loves about the I like about the Pony comics is the tiny details that you guys throw in the backgrounds or the references. You'll see Jennifer Blake did it was the
She did Friends Forever with the
Yeah.
Cutie Mark Crusaders.
Yeah.
Silver Spoon, that's right. That jerk.
and she had all these pop culture references. All these pop culture references, and that's personally what I love about the Pony comics. Now, are there any cultural references that you tried to throw in that IDW said, ooh, that might be copyright, they made it a little too obvious, or...
No, I think most things are covered under parody law,
Yeah,
aren't they?
but
So there's
I-
parody law, which is Weird Al's bread and butter.
Oh, yes.
That you can make fun of something really closely.
It's more of the background
long as it's in
characters,
jest.
So I'm a little different because I don't throw in too many pop culture references because I like putting in the background characters because sometimes I feel you don't see the background characters enough in the comics. So like issue 30, I threw in every single background character I could think of in the issue. And there's like this huge double page spread where there's a giant pie and dress fight. You have to read this to understand why I'm
You had to
talking
be
about
there.
pies and dresses. But I threw in
Good issue.
over 30, 40 background characters because I thought it was kind of cool. I'm like, there's all these background characters everyone loves, so I tried to stuff every single one into that issue that I could think of. For sure, I missed a couple, but at least 40 different background characters appear at one point or another. So, because I thought it would be fun that way.
Yeah, I'm similar. Every once in a while, I'll throw in a pop culture reference. Andy loves a pop culture
Yeah.
reference.
Yes.
That's what when people say like, "I love the details you guys do," they're just talking about Andy. That's like that's like if your sister's really hot and they're just like, "Your family's so handsome." But yeah, the stuff I do is more. I like to do continuity stuff in between the comics or in between the show. I like to put in background ponies. I love to put in characters that showed up in like one issue of a comic that only one person will recognize. So I like doing that sort of thing. Every once in a while, I'll throw stuff in. Like I put the Bluth banana stand in an issue, and I put the dentist truck from Django Unchained in an issue. Super inappropriate on retrospect, but I like that movie.
There's only one character that I haven't seen in any of the comics yet. It's the barking pony that was in long. It was the one. It was in Read It and Weep, and it was like in season
What's that?
season 2.
What's that point?
That was the Read It and Weep. Was the one that was chasing Rainbow.
Hold on, I'll do it.
barking.
Oh, I don't think no.
Screw loose.
I'm making a
Is
note.
it the one with the crazy eyes?
Google.
No, that's Screwball.
Screwball. I
The one with
drew
the little
Screwball,
propeller
yeah.
hat.
I drew Screwball in issue 30. She's there.
Yes.
Dropping a pie on someone.
Pie. What type of pie was it?
It was apple pie. Because it was from the apple family.
Obviously.
Well, you were saying background characters. I figured it was an apple pie. Yeah.
Okay.
But so, comics out. Digital, or how do you guys feel about the digital versus the whole versus the print versions?
If you buy the comic, we're more than happy.
Yeah. Do you mean digital, like buying it on Comixology? Because that's the way I prefer. I mean, or buy it in a store. The other digitally, I'm not crazy about.
Some
Oh no,
people steal it.
you
We'll
need to
cry.
buy the books.
But quite honestly, I don't make $1 one way or the other. You know,
Yeah.
like I'm already paid by the time you get the comics. So if
Yeah,
you're
none of
stealing
us
them,
get
I'm
royalties,
not into
so-
it as much. But you know, we're not
Buy it
enemies.
wherever you want.
I just am happy people are reading it.
Yeah. Personally, though, do you guys have a personal preference between?
I love
Paper.
Trades. Trades are my favorite because
Trades
pretty
are
on
the
shelves.
best.
Like I buy floppies if I really need to read the issue right away, but I love trades. I love putting a trade on my shelf. Well, like I display all the pony books I get, and they got their own little shelf now. And it's just I love the feel of holding a book, and I don't think that'll ever change. So I still will always prefer having a book over the digital. But I like having the digital, especially for reference, because a lot of time I need to pull up reference. So I like having the issues there, especially when I travel, just in case I need to pull up a character which maybe I didn't work with. But for personal taste, I just love having comics and trades. I have a little too many.
Yeah.
How many do you have?
I have no idea anymore. All I know is I ran out of shelf space. Now a lot of them have to be in boxes till I move again.
Yeah, we have a guest room.
That's
guest room is
yeah.
like the
we
library.
have each have an office now, and they're both filled with books. You know, it's bad when the movers are like, "Boy, you sure have a lot of books." Like that's
worst.
all they do all day long, and they're like, "You in particular."
Yeah, they want to move somebody that has shoes.
They hate moving us. All I gotta say is every mover who's moved me hates me because I have a whole lot of little boxes labeled books, but these whole lot of little boxes is over 30 to 50 of them. There's so many of them. So we became one of the places I lived in. Became the running joke how we're like, oh, you're the girl with all those boxes. I was just like, he's never in his life seen so many heavy boxes. And I'm like, it's books.
I buy the books in issues, but I only have to buy them rarely because I do so many covers that usually I just get them sent to me.
We like comps.
So, but if there's one that comes out that I know I didn't draw a cover for that I want to read, I'd buy it on.
Yeah. But outside of ponies.
Oh, those I buy.
Oh yeah, those we buy.
Those I
like
buy in
buying
issues
comics.
too.
Yeah.
I'm a big trades person, so I wait till I'm always behind in comics. Now I'm even worse behind in comics because once you start working in comics, you can't read comics because you're always working. But I still buy them, going, I'll read it one day. I lost count of how many unopened books I have. They're all in a pretty little wrap.
Or you could
Now-
just be a dude and read on the toilet like you're supposed to.
Now, do they give you when you finish a book, either writer, inker, or artist? Does IDW send you a copy?
Oh yeah, we got
Yeah.
at least a copy.
Mm-hmm.
Always, of anything we work on, we get at least a copy.
Most
Most
of the time.
They might forget
Something will
about
slip
it.
through the cracks
You
here.
gotta
and there.
remind them at that point.
Yeah.
But most of the time, we'll get at least a copy of one of our books. If you work on it, like as an artist, I get a few more copies. Then if I do a variant, I'll get fewer copies. But it's always good because I like having a copy of everything I worked on. And it's also good because if I work on a variant for someone else's issue, I can have that issue and finally be like, I read your issue
Yeah.
because it was mailed to me.
Yeah. We get they call them comps.
Complimentary.
Yes, and I know at least on the first two sets, which were, Katie's first arc and my first arc, there are so many variant covers. There's like 10 variant covers. So every month I would get a box that was like a few copies of each cover, which literally fill 2 long boxes in my house right now.
The comics booth downstairs that's selling the variant for this convention. I walked up to it, and it was just this sea of pony, and it's just all these variants, and it's like, I don't know where to start.
Yeah.
So you just ask one of us. We'll point you in the right direction. Tell us what you like, and we'll point out exactly. Like, I read everything. All my comps I get, I read them. So I know the stories. And I was telling Heather, I actually recommend her 2-issue arc with the books and the characters going in the books to a lot of kids because it's one of my favorites. So I was telling her that I always make sure to have copies of that one because especially when it's a kid starting on comics, most parents are like, which one would you recommend? I was telling her, I'm like, I recommend that one actually the most because it's one of my favorite stories. It's really fun. It's really witty. And every kid who I've pointed it towards has been in love with those issues. So I'm like, I always make sure to have that one whenever because I sell a lot of the comics that I work on. The Bookworm.
The book.
Yeah,
Bookworm?
the Bookworm. I did a cover for it too, so I was totally stoked when I got to do a cover for it.
Thanks,
but the Bookwork
Agnes.
arc, it's 2 issues. It just goes on all these adventures in the books, and they go into these different worlds, and like Lord of the Rings, and everything is there, and it's really cool. So
I'm going to have Agnes describe all my comics.
the little worm, well, Big Worm is really cute.
You all mentioned displaying yours. Now, for myself, I have a stack about this big. This is Ponies is my first foray into comics.
Oh.
Thank you.
And hopefully, my wife's hope, it will be my only. But we know better.
Yeah, don't talk to me because I'll recommend a whole.
Yeah.
Oh God. For the collectors out there, how best to display?
Like at home?
At home on your walls.
The older I get, the more I don't know what to do with my single issues.
Yeah.
So I'll buy them. I'll go on the store on Wednesday and I'll buy them and I'll just sort of roll them up and stick them somewhere when I'm done with them. I don't actually
know
roll
how
them
we
up. I'm
take
not
care of it.
crazy, but
Barbarian.
they just sort of end up in piles. Yeah, like
all
a
in
psychopath.
piles.
They're just in piles, and then if I like a story enough, I'll buy the collected edition, and that goes on a shelf in a room. But as for my pony comics, like Agnes, I just keep one of everything I've done just on a big giant shelf.
Is it like in line? Because I want to display your.
I don't have them
the
in
art.
order. I should make I
They're not
hire an assistant every
in
once in a
order.
while. I should make her go put them
Yeah.
in all in order.
Yeah, it's hard to display single issues.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're in their own shelf, but they're not exactly in order. They're more depending on how many times I take them out of the shelf to reference or pull up a house. I'm like, oh, the character appeared in this. Did it? And then I go back. And I'm like, oh yeah. So it's whatever I put back. But I have my pony shelf. You don't want to ask me how we display our comics. The singles, I'm rough with my singles. I use them to get inspired. Like I buy a single and then I might be stumped or I just need something to get away from ponies. I'll go through the issue. Or if I'm like, oh, I wonder what this artist interpreted this character. So I'll go in and I'll pick up the issue. So my singles, I don't take care of my singles, which when a kid comes up to me with the most crumpled up comic book for me to sign, I
That's the
actually
best.
That's the
love
best.
it. Because
Oh,
it
well
means they
loved.
loved it enough that they keep rereading it. And that they're like, oh, I'm so sorry. It's ripped in this corner. It's falling. I'm like, no. I love this. Because it means the kid loved it enough that they can't put it down. But when it comes to displaying, I like my trades displayed on night. I just tell everyone, keep everything out of the sun. Don't put anything in direct sunlight. Whether it's original art, toys, comics, sunlight will destroy everything. So I usually find the shelf that gets the least light, and I try to put my collectibles on that because otherwise everything's going to fade in time. The sun's the worst enemy. So I tell people, if you're framing something, even if it's comics, get the museum glass. Yeah, it's expensive, but your art or comics will last that much longer, especially if it's a room with light. So if you frame anything, get museum glass. It's expensive, but it will pay off in the long run because your comic won't yellow as quickly and it won't disappear. And you're like, oh, that color used to be purple, but now it's brown.
Aw.
So if you're ever displaying anything on your walls and you know there's sunlight in the room, museum glass is a must for sure. But I tell everyone, just keep everything, prints, books, art, collectibles, out of direct sunlight. It'll kill whatever you have.
So don't treat anything that you love the way we treat single issues of
Yes.
comics.
Except for singles issues of comic.
Well, that was mostly the questions I had. But what going into the future? What would you guys love to write about that potentially in the future?
What do you guys?
Do you have stuff coming up?
Nothing confirmed or anything, just ideas that you might like.
Well, I mean,
to see
there's
in the future.
there's like 100 people here, right? We could tell you what's going on. You'll keep it
Sure,
quiet.
none of you would
Just
say
turn the
anything.
cameras
you guys
off. That'd
can
be
see
fine.
what-
Nobody's on your phone,
Yeah.
right?
Nobody's recording, right? No.
What are you doing?
Oh, there we go.
I'm not
That was
doing
it.
any ponies for a while.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm on hiatus.
Well, then what would you write about if you? What was the question?
What would you write about if you were
In
if,
ponies?
In ponies?
What
in
haven't
ponies
you done
or
that
in
you
any
think-
other genre? How about that?
What?
In ponies or any other genre?
Oh, well, I love all ages comics specifically. That's my bread and butter. That's what I write the most. I'm chomping at the bit to get into anything Muppet related right now. Like that's 98% of my time is emailing people I know, being like, "Hey,
You know that
you
the new
Muppets,
series, the
guys."
series they're coming out with,
What's that?"
the ABC series.
Yeah. I did Fraggle Rock years back, and since then I've just been trying to get back on Muppets. So that's sort of my my big. Is that sad? That's my big life goal.
Muppets.
Muppets.
That was Jim Henson's life goal.
It's true.
Worked out for him.
And also Disney, or anything Star Wars.
Oh, Star Wars.
I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful.
Crossover Muppets Star Wars.
I'm hopeful about the new movie. So exactly.
Disney has all the toys.
Soon they'll own us. It's okay.
I just hope they
If
don't-
if I were to write something in the future for ponies, I guess I would want to write a one-shot story about Rainbow Dash and Little Strongheart, where we go back to the plains of Appaloosa and see what's going on with the buffalo. That might be cool.
Really? I love the buffalo.
Yeah, me too. Or, and this is more of a maybe I might like to write.
Like maybe a 50%.
Yeah, it's like a 60-40. But maybe a story where like the Cutie Mark Crusaders are tired of their full sitters telling them no to things, so they convince Bulk Biceps to be their babysitter because he likes to say yeah to things.
Yeah.
So maybe that.
Yeah.
And then also more definitely, I might draw an issue where this is so silly.
Maybe.
Applejack and Fluttershy go camping, and they discover a mystical forest creature called the Pegasus, who is a pig Pegasus.
That's cute.
So I did not write that one though,
Yeah.
Pegasus.
theoretically.
I know what my next book assignment is, but I can't talk about that. Like, if I don't think I'll ever be strong. I want to write again because I used to write my own webcomics, but I think to get into it, I would love to co-write. But I would like a Pinkie Pie and Maud story, just because I love Pinkie Pie. She's my favorite, but I haven't really had a chance to draw a lot of Pinkie Pie, and I really want to draw Pinkie Pie. Tell Bobby Agnes wants to draw Pinkie Pie. But away from comics, you could tweet at DC afterwards. 'Cause I really want to do an all-age, really fun JLA story, because I love the Justice League, and I think there's so much to do with the characters. And I think that would be fun to have a story just a little older than the Tiny Titans, like the next level up, more adventure, more action-packed, and I would love to draw something like that. I think that's like something I'm just like dying to.
Hey,
one day-
Agnes, let's talk later.
Oh, all right, let's talk.
See?
But I've been harassing DC for a long time, and I'm on their radar, so now I just need that opportunity to come up. But me and a writer that worked for DC a while ago, we pitched them a story, and now thinking about it, I don't think my art was strong enough, but I think if we repitched it at the level I'm at now, I think it would have a stronger success rate. But I love the DC characters, and they're just something I really want to work on. Working on Gem and the Holograms right now is something I'm so stoked about because I grew up on Gem, and
Gem is my name.
I know.
Gem
It's
is my
awesome. So right now I'm having a lot of opportunities because I like to call myself a chameleon artist, because if you give me a character that's within the cartoon genre, I can mimic the style, and I think that's what my strong point is that I've worked on Samurai Jack, Powerpuff Girls, Grumpy Cat, What else?
so
I worked on a whole lot of the titles where they called for you have to. Oh, and Sonic the Hedgehog. I worked on Sonic the Hedgehog covers and some backstories as well, where I feel that being a mimic artist opened me up to so many more opportunities because they're like, oh, can you draw the style? And I can. Give me a few tries and I'll always pick up the character, but I think that makes me more versatile. And all these characters I dreamed about working on, I'm starting to work on, but JLA is like on that top of the line. That in Star Wars, that would be totally awesome. I love Star Wars. My dogs have so many Star Wars toys and they have Star Wars leashes. My dogs are
You got the Chewbacca leash?
Yeah, I got the Chewbacca
got the
and the
Chewbacca
Darth
leash.
Vader. I have a really cranky dog, so he's the Darth Vader leash because he's a little dork. And then my little happy pup, she has her little Chewbacca one. Everyone thinks she's a boy, but then she has a little pink Princess Leia leash. So my dogs are unintentionally nerds, and they have a lot of Star Wars. Like anytime there's a doggy like superhero or Star Wars toys out, most likely they get it. Horrible.
We all have our cracks.
Does anyone have any questions about our dogs?
Tell you all about them. Come to me tomorrow. I'll tell you all about the dogs.
That's a whole other panel.
Yeah, that could be a panel in itself. We're obsessed with our dogs. Because we're home all the time.
Totally gonna write them into a story eventually.
Oh, my dogs appear in a whole background characters. And when I worked on Little Vampy for Dynamite Entertainment's like Little Vampirella, they appear as statues in the store window because I'm like, I have to put my dogs in this issue. So I stuffed them as background statues.
I put my dog in it. He's a lead in a Scooby-Doo comic for DC.
Cool.
Because that's what makes us happy.
Putting in our issues.
Well, we got Disney owning everything now. What crossovers would you like to see and possibly work on?
Star Wars.
Well, we got Star Wars. Star Wars Muppets. We know Star Wars Muppets.
and Star Wars. Muppet Star Wars. Oh,
Yeah.
That would be
cool.
awesome.
Why haven't they done that yet? They have all
feel
of
like
the.
they have, right?
Well, no, they have all of like the Disney, like Mickey and Donald and Goofy as Star Wars characters. It's coming. They have to be doing.
Oh, it has to.
I want to cross over ponies and Transformers.
Oh.
That's all I really want to do. Sorry.
I think everyone wants to see that.
I know that's many people's
I
video.
know that's been on the internet somewhere.
Well, I've done it as covers a lot of the time.
Oh,
I
yeah,
just
the-
really
yeah.
want to.
Yeah.
Pinkie Pie and Optimus Prime.
that needs to happen.
I really want to get into explaining how on earth that could happen.
But would that be murder to draw? It seems like a lot of very straight.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm into it. I feel like
Rulers.
I would
I think Tony would rock it.
yeah,
Knock
Yes,
it out
I
of the
did some
park.
Transformers covers. One just came out. You should buy it.
for sure.
Well, we have. Well, what time is it? Oh wow. Okay. We got about 7-8 minutes.
Let's talk about our dogs now.
A whopping.
See if we can get any questions. I think
Questions?
there's a
do questions. Speed
microphone right
round.
up there.
Go to that thing.
The thing that's standing up.
I can't. Sorry, I can't.
Speaking
See. Oh, look, I can see people. Hi, people. You exist out there.
Man, you guys are so good looking.
I know you. You're at the show today. Hi.
Hey there.
All right, so my question for all of you is, what was your first comic or what was the comic that got you into comics?
X-Men. One of my mom's boyfriends tried to impress me, and his way of impressing my mom was buying me comics. Little did he know it would lead to this years and years later. But
Ponies.
X-Men actually was the very first comic I read that got me obsessed with comics.
Jim Lee X-Men?
Yeah.
Jim Lee X-Men number 3.
Oh,
Jim Lee and Chris Claremont.
that was really quick and like well prepared.
Well, yeah,
Like
I'm
you
a
did it
nerd. I
before
know that
something.
answer. Really. I mean, like,
We're ready for that.
my mom's middle name is Lynn.
Mine's slightly more complicated, and I know at least Tony's heard this before, is that when we were little, my parents forced us to go to church, and I never wanted to go. So my payment for going to church was that I got to pick out a comic at the local cigar shop. And I would always get either Spawn or Muppet Babies.
Funny
Wow,
enough,
that is like just like.
yeah, I got Spawn comics too, and I got
And-
this brutal
yeah.
one with this pterodactyl on this big pile of skulls. I can't even remember what issue or what it even was from, but I
Yeah.
became obsessed with it.
Yes, I remember that.
So I'm not going crazy. There is a pterodactyl and a whole
Yes,
bunch
on
of
a
skulls.
Big pile of skulls.
In which comic book?
I don't even remember what it was. I
It
just
wasn't
remember,
in Spawn, or it wasn't?
No, it wasn't Spawn. I know it wasn't Spawn.
I
I
wasn't-
have
no, it
no
wasn't
idea
Muppet
what it was,
Babies.
but the cover is literally this crazy pterodactyl with a six-pack going. Rah,
Was
on
it
a giant-
Sauron?
Yes. From,
Yeah.
the
I
I think it
X-Men.
was Sauron, but I'm not sure
Yeah.
because it was a very violent cover. But I was obsessed with that. By the way, I learned how to read and write reading comics. I'm like the worst. How did you learn? I'm from Poland and I immigrated to Canada. I learned to speak English watching cartoons, and I learned to write and read a lot better because I was scared of reading because I was really, really bad at it. But it's actually comic books and video games because I started playing massive online like Diablo, and I was forced to talk to people online. So I got faster at typing, but I learned how to read, basically reading comic books, which motivated me to be strong enough to read novels, because when you don't have anyone to properly teach you English, you're intimidated. You're scared to pick up the book, but comics were my leeway to fall in love with novels. And then I started being part of the book club where I got novels every month because it was comics that were my leeway to start reading at a stronger level.
Cool.
Cool.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Just a little off topic. But,
I wanted to ask about, designing new characters, not just like background characters, like little your jokes like Andy Price puts in his things, but like characters like Tony, your cloud gremlins. You've worked with a couple of your things. Do you like what's the process like for designing a new character like that? Do you like make a reference sheet or?
Yeah. When we get the script, the part we didn't talk about was before you start doing your layouts, generally, if there's new characters or new places or things in the issue, you sort of have to design that. So, like in the issue Heather and I just did, the Nightmare Moon Fiendship is Magic issue, there's all these creatures who sort of got designed at the end of the Nightmare Rarity, which are like the spirit of the...
Yeah.
They were called the Nyx in the book, but they're basically, when Nightmare Moon is on the moon, they're evil, and otherwise they're sort of happy dream moon creatures. So I got to sort of design those, and I always go into it thinking like, I need to draw a character that has these elements, but also looks organically like a My Little Pony character. So the Cloud Gremlins are my favorites just because I feel like they look the most like a My Little Pony character
so
and
cool.
the most like something I would draw, so I'm pretty attached to them. I put them in everything.
They're so cute.
I talk about it constantly, so I'm sure everybody's bored of hearing about them, but
He has them
Jeez.
tattooed on
I
his
do.
chest.
big, they're dressed like the Virgin Mary.
How do you guys?
Yeah, they're in everything I draw. They're little pink cloud gremlins.
How do you guys feel that when the show veers, your comic book comes out first, and then the show decides to completely just like torpedo your?
Is it canon?
Is it canon?
We just attended the Canon or Fanon panel.
We did.
to
Was
see
anyone
if-
else at
We
the Canon
totally
and Fandom
crashed
panel?
our own
Yeah,
panel.
that thing
Hi,
ruled.
we were there.
audience.
By the
No
way,
one's
the
noticed
verdict
us.
is in. It's all canon, so
It's all
quick
canon.
word about it.
It's all canon.
That guy at the panel decided.
We could have
Thank
done
you.
that in like three seconds.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Do you guys think an MLP and EQG crossover arc could make for a good story? And if one of you had to write it, let's say it was like a 4-issue arc, would you find it to be a daunting task?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes and yes.
Yeah.
I think it could be awesome. I like the Equestria Girls a lot. I know not everybody does, but I think they're
They're
really
fun.
cool.
I like them a
Fantastic.
lot.
I think they're
obsessed
fun,
with
too.
the
Man, that would be approvals.
Better than Monster
Yeah.
High.
You
Yeah,
think it would
so
have a
it-
lot of potential?
Oh, yeah,
yeah,
for sure.
totally.
Yeah, it'd be really fun. It just
In the-
it would be logistically possibly impossible.
Yeah.
In the holiday special I did, there are like 2 or 3 pages where it has ponies on the page and the girls on
Yeah,
the
I
page
saw
at the same
that.
time.
Yeah.
I love that like bonus arc. I thought that was awesome.
Oh, thanks.
That was
yeah.
my favorite. Out of all like the bonus things like you guys have written, that was by far my favorite one.
Oh, thanks.
Absolutely loved it.
Yeah, I thought it was really fun to just have like the Equestria Girls characters and the pony characters. They're like they weren't in the same place, but they're on the same page, and just seeing how they fit together, I thought was nice.
And I'm not sure if any of you do like the Friends, also do the Friends Forever ones. But like the big thing I like about that is that it allows us to have 2 pony comics a month instead of 1.
Yeah,
That much
really-
better.
Really enjoy that,
We
especially
love-
during the hiatus.
yeah, absolutely.
The
We love
show.
that. That means we can have work all the
Yeah,
time.
we like work.
You were our life.
good.
You were our life raft during the long pony drought.
Oh, thank you.
Because of that, we always have something to read and something to do and think about Pony.
Well, we'll keep making them.
And speculate.
Yeah,
Thank
we'll
you
keep
guys.
making
Yeah,
it.
of course. Thank you.
Hello.
Hello,
Again, and I'm an artist that's, I'm trying to think this through. I'm on the spectrum, so it's kind of hard for me to put my words out or anything like that. I'm really into the comic books industry really much, trying to get into animating and everything all on down, comics and cartoons. I made a comic book. I just showed it to Tony Fleecs earlier.
Yeah, it's
today.
incredible.
Yeah, Once Upon a Dream. I just can't, it took me a year just to finish it. It's not like how you paste it in a week. It took me a whole year since I showed you the original drawing from a year ago all the way up to now. And I just finished it. How you get this organized from multiple chapters to one thing?
Oh,
Practice.
Yeah, it's all about practice. Also,
And-
the pressure of having to get it done on time.
yeah, I think there's tons of people who've made their own comic book who it's taken multiple years. So you're completely,
Yeah.
you're okay if you're taking a year to do it. We just do it we would not do it as fast as we do if we didn't have crushing deadlines that scare us.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this year was probably my deadline.
Yeah, you got it done.
And you gotta do
Yep.
it. Yeah.
May I show it to you and you later?
Yeah, you guys got to see it.
Yay.
Next year,
Yeah.
do two.
I'll come tomorrow and show you.
Awesome.
Cool. We
We'd
look
love
forward
see
to it.
Yeah, you're gonna like it too.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just keep cracking at it. That's
Yep, thank
all
you.
we do. Yeah,
You're
thank
welcome.
you.
Hey.
Hello.
So like what Tony said, you do like 22 pages per comic, right?
Yep.
So I was wondering what, if there's a different process at all for longer comics, longer formats, such as, I don't know, like Scott Pilgrim or something like that, where it's like a actual long book, or is it just think comics but big?
Longer deadlines.
Yeah.
Yeah, longer comics to longer deadlines.
Yeah.
Generally, also when you have a longer comic to work with, there tends to be pages that are a little airier, you know. So not every page is as packed with story and as panels.
You get more
as
splash
the pages in a
pages.
single issue are. Yeah.
Yeah, and also in the case, because I got excited because you said Scott Pilgrim because it's my favorite. But those books have a max of like 4 panels per page, like where ours have
6.
So they're definitely longer, but they have a lot more space to kind of air things out. So yeah, it's a lot more work and thinking about pacing, because we also have to think about like, oh, this is gonna get too technical, like page turns, like things that keep people turning pages, like have something exciting at the bottom of the page so people turn the page, which I imagine would be really daunting in a full graphic novel.
Yeah, 200 pages.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you read the comics, if the writer's paying attention on the odd-numbered pages, that'll usually have like a question or a cliffhanger at the end of the page, some small thing that makes you go, oh, I want to see what happens next, and that's when you turn the page.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
I hope it's a good one. No pressure.
Last question.
You mentioned working on with like Dark Horse and Marvel. So like of all the other IPs that you've worked on, which one is your favorite?
Spider-Ham.
Wow.
So I just love Spider-Ham. It was the most like bizarre. It was only 4 pages, but it was such a fun story because he turns into Peter Porker, and Peter Porker gets turned into Spider-Human. I think that one's one of my favorites. I'm working on Gem right now. The IDW property has to be one of my favorites because I could use they're using the brightest colors I could possibly use on that, and it's so wacky and fun and cute. But I would say Spider-Ham and Gem, I think, are my 2 other very favorite. But when I worked for Marvel, I worked with Robin Herf, and when I worked on the Girl comics with her, we worked very closely together. Like, she basically asked me, what do you want to draw? And then the whole time she was writing the script, we worked so closely, just back and forth to come up with that short story that I think working with her was one of my favorite experiences because I've never worked that closely with a well-established writer before. And it was a really, really fun story that we worked on. So just working on with her was the greatest experience, but Spider-Ham was Spider-Ham. So
Yeah.
of course it's awesome. So
He's a pig who's Spider-Man.
he's a piggy. Cute.
Thank you.
I guess I like working on Transformers the most besides ponies, and I just did a bunch of Army of Darkness meets Vampirella covers.
Oh, they're so
Oh, you
awesome. You guys have to check out these covers.
Those are super fun. I like Vampirella a
Sweet.
lot.
Who doesn't? I did some Wonder Woman, which I really enjoyed. And I also did some work for Bongo, so the Simpsons comics, which was a big deal to me as a lifelong Simpsons fan. But Wonder Woman was definitely, when you grow up with comics and you get to actually work on a superhero, then that's like a big deal. So, yeah.
Well, I want to thank you guys again. Let's give it an awesome hand to Agnes Garbowska, Tony Fleecs, and Heather Nuhfer.
Thank you so much for coming out.
Thanks, guys.
You can find them down in the vendor hall. Be sure, because they have some awesome art that the originals and from the comics. Am I correct?
Yep.
Oh yeah, definitely come by those.
Yeah.
Yes.
A lot of goodies. Yep.
We got something for all budgets, but the original's probably the most exciting thing for you to buy.
Cool.
And get
You want to
some
impress your
sleep.
friends. Yeah, get some
All
rest.
of you go home and get some sleep.
But BronyPalooza.
What?
Oh,
BronyPalooza.
yeah, Brony.
Oh, go to BronyPalooza, then
After-
get
Then
some
go to
sleep.
sleep.
Then go to sleep.
Thank you.
Thank you guys.